Hello, everybody. My name is Asher, your host for the Revenue Journey podcast, where we interview and grab unique perspectives from amazing individuals doing technology sales within the APAC region. Welcome to season 2 of this podcast. If you're already in technology sales today, I hope this podcast gives you more insights into the technology sales landscape in APAC. However, if you're not in technology sales today and you're considering making a leap into this exciting career, tuning into a podcast like this could really help you. Also, if you're looking for help to get into technology sales, I also offer consultation services for individuals looking to get into technology sales. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or through the Get Higher Tech Sales website, which will be in this episode's description. So with that being said, let's get this episode started. Okay, hello Kaely. Welcome to the Revenue Journey podcast. Now, first of all, as always, thank you for being on this show. Tell the listeners and myself how you're feeling this Tuesday evening.
Thanks for having me here. Not gonna lie, there's a bit of nervousness. I've never been on a podcast before, but more so like I'm excited to just like share my story and speak with you and hope that, some of my experience resonates with some of your listeners. And yeah, we're looking forward to like the great chat we're gonna have.
Yep, definitely. And of course, for as of the date that we're recording this podcast, you actually also just got promoted to a business development manager not too long ago. So
Yeah.
from an IC to sort of like a manager. So we definitely want to dive a little bit into that later. Okay.
Cool.
But I mean, Kaely, of course, we want to find out about how you got started in tech sales, right? You started your career in PR and comms in different agencies, and you made that transition. So tell us a little bit about that journey and why you decided to make that jump.
I studied sociology and corporate communications in university, and pretty much, all the internships that I pursued were in the PR space. So it was the natural step to take as I went into the working world as well. Pretty much just stayed in my comfort zones. But as you mentioned, I was in a few different agencies. I was actually in two. So the first one I started in the, representing consumer brands. And I didn't feel like I quite belonged there. I was wondering if it was because of the brands that I was representing. So just as an example, like I was representing Tiger beer, but I don't personally drink beer. So I thought maybe it was that, and that I wanted to represent more meaningful or impactful brands. So I moved to more of a corporate agency, but I wasn't quite happy there as well. So with these two moves, I decided to take really a step back into what did I like about PR and what am I running away from? And I realized that what I liked about PR were two things. Firstly, it is selling stories. So actually being a PR person is very similar to being a BDR. We are selling product and campaign launches to journalists. We have to research, what did the journalists recently write about and try to fit our product offering in their world through cold emailing and relentless cold calling. And then the second thing that I was drawn to was having targets. So I realized that as a PR person, if I had like a very specific target, I felt so alive. I would just do like everything that I could to achieve and overachieve on those targets. And then I realized, what I was running away from was that I wanted to create more impact, and I think it was, more business impact, and also for myself, I wanted to create more financial impact. So I wanted a more financially rewarding role. And around that time was when tech sales was popping up. It sounds easy, but it wasn't. I was very lost in the whole process. So I'm very thankful that I had friends that I could turn to. They connected me with people they knew in companies that I might be interested in, people in the space. I spoke with an AE from Datadog, and he shared with me a bit more about, tech sales as a career and starting out as a BDR. And then that was when I started to explore more like about the BDR role and thinking like, oh, there's so many similarities between what I do as a PR person and being a BDR. I thought like, oh, it's actually really very transferable. And I'm very happy that Bodify gave me a shot. So here I am today. Yeah.
Right. And of course, we hope that through this podcast today, you now become the one to give people a perspective on the whole tech sales environment.
Yeah. And for sure, like I also feel that because I made a transition, I'm also very open to people in my team coming from diverse backgrounds as well. Like I just hired 3 new people in my team, and I think I was always on the lookout for people who were hungry, coming
Mm.
from different industries and wanting to make the transition. Yeah.
Definitely, and we should definitely dive into some of those, the journey of becoming sort of like a manager right now. But
Mhm.
before that, you talk about how you were in PR. Your job was really
Mhm.
to help companies gain more awareness, gain more branding, which actually is
Mhm.
similar to what Bodify does. You're helping companies to get more visibility on Google itself. That's one of the
Yeah.
things.
Spot
But
on.
yeah, indeed. And maybe for our listeners who may not be familiar with Spotify, maybe start off by telling us a little bit about what kind of solution or service Spotify provides.
Okay, sure. So Spotify, it's not a very cold call friendly name. A lot of people always think that we're saying Spotify, and then we
Yep.
respond, no, we're not here to talk about good music. It's Spotify with a B. If you call a spade, it's a enterprise SEO solution. And just to give more context, it is the challenge we solve is that 50% of massive websites today are not being seen by Google. So if you're an e-commerce brand and that chunk of your website is just not popping up where searchers are looking for you, content that you've
Mhm.
already invested massive amount of resources in, there's just a lot of lost revenue and traffic opportunities. Um,
Mm.
Optimizing a website for Google, there's so many technical and content gatekeepers that is very volatile as well.
Yep.
So we have insights, we help you make sense of the insights, prioritize recommendations, and even automate some of these actions so that you can entirely solve this problem and, as you said, make your website more visible.
Yep. And of course, it's an enterprise solution. So sounds like you are really going after companies who invest heavily into, I would say, SEM, search engine marketing. But what about the types of companies? Like, are they in certain industries or certain verticals?
Yeah, so the key verticals that we focus on, it's e-commerce, as well as in the publishing space, mainly because within these two verticals, you would have companies with very massive websites. So just going back a bit to your point, like not just companies that invest a lot into SEM, but invest a lot into their website.
Mm.
And they would benefit a lot from just making content that they've already invested in be more visible organically. Yeah.
Right. And of course, the last two questions I have firstly is what about the type of personas that your company tries to speak to? Who are they? And lastly, right now as a manager, what are some of the countries that you're overseeing? Is it the whole of Southeast Asia or specifically some countries?
Yeah. So we always say go to power. So decision makers in the digital e-commerce, marketing, as well as the tech field. And then in terms of markets that we are involved in, it would be across APAC, so ANZ, as well as Southeast Asia, primarily Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. So we're pretty much starting out small and scaling. I would want to say fast. Yeah.
Yep. And of course, thanks so much for sharing that. That really gives our listeners a lot of context. And right now, we actually want to dive into the main topic of the day. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
best way to start off is, you started as a BDR, not just a BDR in a tech sales environment, but actually as a BDR in an early APAC team. And
Mm-hmm.
I resonate a lot with that because that has been my journey as well. I've also personally been part of these early APAC teams, and there are
Mm-hmm.
always the typical challenges and benefits. But why not you be the one to share with us? Being part of a member of an early APAC team, what were some of the challenges you face as someone who is a brand new SDR? Someone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as an early APAC team, you're pretty much a startup, but we are not lost sheep. The benefit that we get is that these are global companies expanding into APAC. So you do have, globally established sales enablement, business development, marketing. But of course, you cannot duplicate their efforts wholesale for such a diverse market like Southeast Asia.
Yep.
And that comes with the challenge, but also the opportunity to be very creative in really understanding what is the core message, and your core market, and what exactly within that core message will speak to them. So I think as an early BDR, I didn't have like a BDR manager.
Yep.
Pretty much it was myself and within the sales team, myself, another BDR, as well as my account executive. I would say I was very fortunate because my account executive doubled up as a customer growth director with 5 years of experience in the company. So he was a CSM, he was an AE, he started as a BDR. So he knows the product inside and out. He knows how to sell it. He knows how to prospect for it. And he taught me everything that I know. So I'm very fortunate, to have learned like just so much from him. But also taking the initiative, right? Like to tap into the resources that you have. So what I did was like I reached out to my global counterparts to understand, what was working for them and what wasn't. And just I can't duplicate wholesale what they are doing, but I can apply like the thought process. For example, being opportunistic by having a new hire filter and sequence ongoing is low-hanging fruit to keep your pipeline filled. Yeah.
Yep. And I really resonate with that, right? Because like you said, you didn't have a BDR manager. So you didn't have someone kind of guiding you every step of the way, like literally helping you onboard. And I think the word I like to tell people when they ask me about early APAC teams is initiative. You just got to take many initiatives. And I think we talk about that, right? So you talk about going to global teams, getting their feedback, working with your AEs. But you also mentioned something that you did outside of what a typical BDR would do. I think we talk about that. So maybe you want to share that
All
as well.
right. Yeah, so it was nice because as we need to be self-drivers. So pretty much I had a lot of autonomy to steer my objectives. And it was fun that I got to tap into my previous experience in PR. So in line with, trying to grow the brand presence of Butterfly in APAC, I personally reached out to publications in the region. So I reached out to like Martech Asia, I reached out to like a SEO blog in Indonesia, and offered interview opportunities or byline opportunities with thought leaders within my company.
Yep.
And that helped generate coverage because later we had prospects who hopped on meetings with us and they said like, yeah, I remember because I saw the article that came out. So that was a really nice opportunity that I had. Yeah.
And I'm really curious, right? So it's a small company. You had the autonomy to do that. I assume there isn't too much red tapes, but did you actually have to go through like a marketing team? Do you have to get it approved by someone, or this was just talk to my head, talk to this person, approve?
Yeah, I definitely had to seek approvals, but it was very quick. Just like an email, this is what I want to do, this is the advantage, this is the help that I need, and this is how I'm going to drive it. And it was approved in like a day because
Oh,
everyone is in the same time zone, everyone is in the same office as well. And I think it's just like also because the initiative that I was proposing was very in line with the objectives that we had. We really were looking to grow the brand name and awareness of Butterfly in the region. So yeah, I would say though that by benefit of being a small team, you just have such easy access to the top to make yourself feel heard and to really deliver impact to a company. Yeah.
right. And did that cost you any, I guess, cash or money to get featured, or it was more of you pitched a story, they liked it, they picked it up, and that happened?
Yeah, so it was free, and that's the best part to kind of show my value at the time, because PR is all about like organic coverage as well. Yeah, so I had some journalist connections also from my previous life, and so I could quite
Nice.
easily reach out to them and say like, hey, remember me? I'm now in this new space, and do you want to interview my executive? Yeah, so it was cool.
Nice. And of course, speaking about initiative and I would say that whole self starter sort of
Mhm.
mentality. I think one of the things we talked about as well was the fact that, for example, when you started, you're in Singapore, you speak English, maybe some Mandarin and some dialects, but you were given, for example, Indonesian market. Okay, and that was what you had to expand into. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, for again, there will be listeners here who is based in Singapore, for example, but they are given foreign markets. How did you even start in there? What was the process like? Because you don't speak Bahasa Indonesia, obviously. So what was that process like?
Yeah. Yeah, that process was very experimental, but I think
Mm,
honestly, every BDR has to be experimental. Even if you have a very supportive company where they're giving you everything that you need to say, you still need to find a way to say it that your voice can accommodate so that you can, convey it naturally, like on the phone. If not, you're just gonna sound like a broken recorder or a machine and not really touch your prospects in that way.
mm,
So yeah, you had to be very experimental, and I started just being just like naive. I just took what the US were doing and I replicated it tit for tat.
yep,
And it was funny because then I was thinking, and I was telling my AE, like, I don't think Indonesians read their emails.
mm,
But then slowly I started to just do a bit of research um, uh, into actually one thought leader that I really followed at the time was Josh Braun.
yep,
So even
mm,
though he's a US thought leader, his style is very like asking for permission, um, you know, thinking that your prospects are more interesting than your product. And I think going into it with that mindset for the Indonesia market really helped. So I really dialed back on all of the US based messaging that was very challenging and very assumptive, and tweaked it to be more polite, courteous, and just asking for a lot of permission in my
mm,
emails. And slowly I started to see more responses, not just in Indonesia, but across Southeast Asia as well. And
yep,
then on the cold calls, Josh Braun has this talk track where he's like playing on people's um, receptiveness to offer help when asked for it. So one of his
mm,
openings was, "Hey, I was just on your LinkedIn profile. Could you help me for a moment?" And I was just trying
right,
all of these different things, but this one for the Indonesia market was so impactful because immediately I got responses
right,
like, "Yeah, how can I help you?" It just really played to their culture of like just Indonesians being very nice people, and yeah, so
mm,
being experimental, trying things like this was the key to unlocking meetings despite not speaking Bahasa. Um,
right,
of course, there were a lot of funny stories still. Like, I mean, if I cannot speak Bahasa, but the prospect can only speak Bahasa, then no matter what I try to say, it doesn't work. So now we
mm,
finally have a BDR who speaks Bahasa, and
yep,
he's a killer on the phones. So
mm,
and he was your recommendation as well. Not a recommendation, but you helped him um, with making the transition. So yeah, thanks for that.
oh, definitely, it's my pleasure, right? But I mean, Kaely, if you had to put a number and a time frame, so for example, how
mm,
many, let's say, sequences do you try before you kind of crack
mm,
the code in a sense, and how
mm,
long did it take you from the day you started prospecting into Indonesia, just for the viewers to get some
mm.
context?
I think I built around 4 sequences.
Mm,
So the first two were duplicates from the US, and then the next one was a bit of a small tweak, and then the next one more tweaks. It's not very specific because it's a while back. Um,
mm,
yeah, and I would say it took me maybe 2 weeks to really get good and strong momentum generating, because I was really like just intensely absorbing uh,
yeah,
the course that I bought from JB
yeah.
and
Oh,
just like
wow.
at the same time like just applying it and trying to see like what worked and what didn't. I was very risk averse, so with my sequences and my messaging and all of that, I would only test it in a very small sample size of like 5, and
Oh, okay.
then yeah, if it didn't work, then I would just totally cancel it and move on to the next thing. And if it worked, I would replicate it. Yeah, so it's just that process. Yeah.
Okay, 2 weeks is definitely much faster than what I did back then when I first started as a BDR. But I mean, I really resonated with that part about how you got to tweak things from the US to more um, Asia centric, right, or Indonesian centric. I think I always tell people a story where my first ever sequence had a video in the first step or the last step, and I sent out close to 80 uh, 80 emails or sequences with that video, and I think the number was three or four replies with only two that is positive or one,
Mm.
and I was like, I'm spending so much effort, but this is which by the way that percentage was the same if I didn't do a video. So that was when I was like, okay, maybe this part of the world is not ready for some things from the US. Execution is a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, and taking videos is just so much more effort because you're like rehearsing and then nope, I don't like it. I'm gonna cancel it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it still works, right? In certain aspects, maybe like a follow up or you've met the person. I think that works really well. But that is just for a story for another day. But
Mm.
now we want to kind of jump into your route to management, that journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
what was interesting is that you went from a BDR to first a team lead, and
Mm-hmm.
subsequently you went to a BDR manager, which is how I
Mm-hmm.
first got to how you came onto my radar.
Mm.
But what was also interesting is you also offer an AE role during that period
Mm.
as well. So
Mm.
maybe in your own words, tell us why. Would you say that you would attribute it to your initiative, or were there other reasons that kind of got you to promote that fast in a short period of time?
So what I would attribute um my promotion to, I I I think I'm not gonna ignore the fact of being in the right place at the right time, right? Even though I was showing very consistent uh, results as a BDR because I was achieving and overachieving for consecutive months. That's when I kind of gained the trust of my management to step up into the team lead role as well. Um, by virtue of being just one of the earlier BDRs, and I'm very fortunate to be in that position. Um, I then was in a position to step up as the team was continuing to grow. So when I was the team lead, it was a team of two that I was supporting, and at the same
Mm.
time I was building pipeline as well. So wearing both hats. And then now the team is a team of four. So that's when I'm stepping up more as a manager role, focusing more on really the success of the team and stopping on building that individual pipeline.
Yep. And what about the part where you had the opportunity to choose to be an AE and an SDR manager? Because
Mm,
that was too hard for
yeah,
you. Why
yeah,
SDR manager and not the other?
yeah. So honestly, I am so early on in my career that I haven't experienced both the management or AE route. So I didn't know what what fit me best, and I'm very open to both experiences. Um, and I considered what the company needed, and I felt like at the time what they needed was not an AE, but someone to step up to lead the incoming BDRs. So I took that opportunity to deliver value where it was most needed.
Yeah. And I have to say, back then what I told you is the same. I think it was a very noble approach, if I can use that word. Mandarin we call it 伟大, right? Uh, yeah, because to be frank, I think when I talk to different SDRs, I
Mm,
would say 80% of the time, their goal is to be an AE. The
yeah.
20%, maybe a CSM, maybe SDR manager, or maybe I don't know.
Mm,
So
mm,
it was very rare. But I mean, tell me a little
yeah.
bit about this whole challenge, right? Where you become an SDR manager. Because obviously
Mm,
you're going from IC to a manager. Now you're not just
yeah.
managing your quota, you're managing a team quota and people. How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, just exactly as you said it, right? Like that transition is big. Um, you know, being a self-driver means like I take a lot of pride in really like steering the ship. But now as a BDR manager, yes, there is that ownership as well, because I get to really be very involved in supporting my team. But then at the same time, you are taking a step back from really being on the ground and doing that prospecting. In the past, how crazy I was that, if I didn't meet my target for the day, I really just wouldn't leave my seat. I wouldn't leave my desk. But of course, I don't expect the same from my team. But that's just how much I relished I relished, is that word? I wanted I took the control that I had. Yeah. So then with new people in the team, you're building new relationships, at the same time building trust. Trusting that I am giving you the best support possible, and that you are supporting yourself, driving your success as best as you can as well. So that letting go part was a challenge. And then I think being a manager, a lot of new managers would maybe share the same challenge of that you get more difficult conversations, because you are managing upwards, protecting your team's time, your team's quota from any changes dependent on the revenue targets of the company. And then you are also managing a team. I want them to grow not just professionally but personally as well. So then that means that it matters to me to give feedback as best as I can. Not just like pinpointing, this is where what needs to be done, but like really showing them that I care, because I do. And having that two-way discussion, to see how we can work together to achieve that growth best for them. Yeah. So I think that's when I really understood the importance of communication skills, because in the past, like, you are an advocate for yourself. If you fail yourself, if I failed myself, I didn't really feel a pinch. But then there were early parts in being a BDR manager where I just felt like I could have spoken up for them better. And so that's actually when I started to I hired like a communication coach. So her name is Ray, and she owns like a Own Your Voice movement. So she really helped me to find my voice in terms of like how I want to step up as a manager. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. You are very committed. That's what I have to say to improving your job. But I mean, I'm curious, right? In times when, because someone has told me this before, when they make a move from IC to manager, they say that in the IC, to a certain extent, you can, because you're managing yourself, to a certain extent, you can tell yourself that, okay, if I hit 100% of my quota, that's enough. I'm done. I can rest, or 120,
Yeah.
whatever that number is. But as you're managing people, how do you first, number one, decide when is enough? Like, can you tell yourself that, oh, instead of I can do more, you tell yourself, okay, I'm good for now? And how do you manage that kind of stress or disappointment that comes with sometimes you mismanaging things? So 2 questions on
Wow.
that.
Okay. Let me answer the first one, and then maybe you might need to remind me on the second one. Yeah, but the first one, I think it's working closely with them, but then not micromanaging, to just break down like their targets, encouraging them to stretch themselves, asking them concrete questions like, setting the objective like, we are going to set a stretch goal, and then they set a stretch goal, and then asking them concrete questions. How are you going to get there, and what is the support that you need? I think that has really helped the team to be on track with delivering on the pipeline, and also like keeping morale high, because you're breaking down like a big target into weeks, and ensuring that where there are challenges, that we are working together through it to identify solutions. And I like to do a lot of small little things just to bring up the team morale and inspire a lot of like learning and sharing and building your knowledge as well. So I think that has really helped to just keep I'm very fortunate. Like I do have a very motivated, very hardworking, and amazing team. Yeah.
Right. And those are small challenges that you have to motivate yourself and the whole team, right? What about the second question, which is times when, let's say, things are not working well, global changes, targets change, things like that, and people are
Mm.
not hitting targets. I hope that doesn't happen for you, but during those
Yeah.
times, what do you do?
Yeah, I think the question then I like to ask is like, what is the support that they need? And just working closely with them to identify those blockers, whether it's that they've gotten rusty on a cold call, they're not sure what new messaging to use for their emails, or how they can really make the most out of LinkedIn. Just finding small opportunities like this to really get them closer to meeting their targets is important. I think, I mean, if they're not meeting their targets, then it's, yeah, they'll probably have challenges that we will connect on, and yeah, like identify where it needs to be improved. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, this does. But of course, more than just what you do for the team members, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what you do for yourself. Because and the reason
Mm.
I'm asking this is because this is just for those listeners who
Yeah.
maybe aspiring SDR managers or BDR managers.
Mm.
What do you do for yourself and to manage your stress level? And
Yeah.
what do you think are some things that someone needs to have before they decide to go into that SDR or managerial route?
Yeah, I think having a support system is very important. Um, So, yeah, I mean, I have friends, I have family outside of work that I can, talk to about my challenges. Another thing is, another part of that support system is finding like-minded people. So I have
Mm,
connected with, other managers, other women as well in
nice.
different organizations out there where we can talk about the challenges that come with being a manager. Um, Spotify has this resource called, I think it's Bravely. So
Mm,
like basically it's like career coaching, and you
wow.
can basically schedule sessions to talk about any challenges that you have, and that was also very helpful for me to talk about challenges and through coaching find solutions. Um, Another thing that brings me comfort um, is books. So, I
Mm,
really devoured a lot of books on management, on prospecting.
mm,
And I think through that, I'm always inspired to try new solutions or to raise the ceiling even before challenges occur. So maybe that's why it's a bit hard to answer the question on that.
mm,
The real challenge hasn't happened yet. Where there are little cracks, I think I really try to, step in and ask like, what is the support that they need. And I think that's the role of a manager, like to just ensure your team is happy, uh, well supported in being successful in the work that they do.
mm,
And of course, I know this is a privilege of being in a small organization where I am so easily within reach to my team.
mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I think in a sense you kind of answered the question, right? In terms of what should they consider when going to a SDR manager role. But just from your answer, it seems like you need to like helping people, and
Yeah.
you gotta be know that helping people must bring joy to you, almost essentially.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like you have to start deriving more joy from that. And I think that's the thing. Like there are challenges with it, but then when I get that little successes or like little just small notes of appreciation, like happy to have you as my manager. Like thank you for
Wow,
helping me. Like it just makes me feel like okay, this is worth it. Yeah.
nice. And of course, before we go to the last question, I have to ask you on behalf of our aspiring SDRs who are listening to this, what do you
Mm,
look out for as a hiring manager? What are some of the key things you look out for when hiring an SDR for your team?
mm. Yeah, I think definitely someone who you have to understand the job, right? I think being a BDR is not a complicated job.
Mm,
You are doing three essential things in your outreach to book qualified meetings, right?
mhm,
Um, and that takes hunger, that takes organization, and that takes knowing knowing your stuff. Yeah. So
Yep.
I think what I look out for in terms of knowing your stuff, especially, it's like, um, do you understand the company that you are interviewing for? I think
Mm,
that is so crucial that I wish I saw more of as I was interviewing candidates for the recent uh, opportunities that we had open.
mm,
Somehow, we had candidates coming in and um, obviously not knowing what Bodify is and then trying to make up what SEO is to people who are actually in the field. That's
yep.
definitely, not really the way to go. So know the company you're interviewing for, know what challenge they solve and for who. And the bonus is like knowing who you're speaking with, because ultimately as a BDR, you are speaking to prospects, right? And if an interview you can show that you did your prospect research and you can sell
Mm,
yourself, fit yourself in the world of the people interviewing you, like that's the way to go. You got a job.
yep.
Yeah.
I have to agree, right? Even when people ask me, like, I like to say this, like, when people ask me, how do I get SDR role? I always say, of course, every hiring manager has something different they want to know about you, your motivation, all these things. But there's always two things they want to know. Like, why do you want to join this company? And
Mm,
why do you want to be an SDR? And why do you want to
mm,
join this company? You talk about the product, you talk about how you're inspired of its solution and its benefit to
mm,
people. And that, if you can answer those two questions, right, you have a higher chance than someone who mass
yeah.
sends resume and just tries to, because you don't do that for prospecting as well. You don't try to do mass send because that probably wouldn't work
Yeah.
too well too.
But that makes your job easier as well. Like, um, if you were to script through the interview process by not really knowing what the company is, and then you go into the BDR role, you'll find yourself with a massive challenge of, just difficulty selling a solution that you don't even resonate with. So, any BDRs out there who are interviewing for any jobs, if you can apply for a company that you with the product that you resonate with, that you really see the true value of, you're making your life just a lot easier as well.
Indeed, indeed. I think
Yeah.
everybody should hear this before they apply for a job.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, Kaely, coming to the end of this podcast, we want to touch on
Mm,
something that you're passionate about, and you had some snippets of it when you were talking earlier on. So, for someone like you in tech sales, I think what
mm,
people will categorize you is as they will categorize you as a woman in tech. Okay,
mm.
and in recent years, we see a trend where more women are coming into the industry, whereas in a technical or in a business or a mixed business slash technical role like sales.
Mm, mm.
Now, then we had to touch on this topic of, let's say, equal opportunities and diversity. And I know that's something you're really passionate about. Why not tell us a little bit more about what you think about that?
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, equal opportunities and diversity. I think firstly, you and I are beneficiaries of that. With all of these local or global tech companies coming into APAC, making Singapore their headquarters, seeing
Mm,
the vast potential of the region and investing just massive amounts of resources into companies and people like you and I.
mm,
I think, yeah, safe to say we are all beneficiaries. As you mentioned, like it is definitely nice to see tech and tech sales being a diverse space. Like I mean, on LinkedIn, just what I see is that it's not you get your fair share of men, women, um, uh, locally as well. Um, if you were to Google like salesperson and go to
mm,
images, typically you would see a guy and a white guy. Yeah. So it's nice that there is this contrast. Um, I think most tech companies
mm,
are very progressive as well. So um, I like what I experience and what I see on LinkedIn as well is that there are a lot of initiatives out there to have more discussions on equal opportunities
mm,
for both men and women, um, regardless of the size of the company that you are from, big or small. Um, Creating equal opportunities for everyone, regardless of your gender, happens every day, right?
mm,
If you are in a meeting, um, do you see someone who looks like you in the room? And do they all look like you? And if so, like why, what is it that you can do to create more diversity in this discussion? It's as simple as that. As you move up into a managerial role, and I think that's what I consciously try to do as well, is to really apply less biases to people. Just really entering each interview and speaking with each candidate with a very open mind, understanding like the skill set that is crucial to being a BDR, and the mindset more so than the experience that you have, because like there have been interviews where it's like a advanced BDR with so many accolades or achievements to speak of, but then they don't understand Butterfly, they don't understand who they're speaking with. Versus someone fresh, eager, and nothing to show for yet, but bringing so much to the table in the way that they research the company and the person that they're speaking with, and the way that they're answering questions in the interview. Yeah, so I think for me at least, like I'm in a company that started out dominantly white male, because it was a French company coming into Singapore, and it's been very nice to see the diversity grow. And I think that has been the effort of really the conscious effort of looking into bringing in people from diverse backgrounds. So yeah.
Yep. And I think that's a really good point, right? And I think it's something that it's always good when you, as an IC, you move on to a management level. I think that's something that now you have a higher influence over, and you can influence those thoughts and processes and even changes. And of course, I think one of the interesting you point out before the recording was tomorrow, actually. So tomorrow, 8th of March.
Oh yeah.
Yep, is International Women's Day. Maybe since we celebrate women, right? Maybe tell us from your own experience, what do you see is a trend for women going into tech sales, when you interview women versus men?
Yeah.
Just facts, right? Just sharing your experiences, and what do you think? Let's say the woman, again considering tomorrow International Women's Day, what do you think is something that they can do more or you've experienced?
Yeah, I think so. This is with the assumption that and the observation that a lot of people coming into tech are coming from different industries. We're making a big career change, and so what we really need to do is to advocate and sell ourselves. What I know from my experience and also from hiring as well, interviewing people, is that my observation is that women tend not to advocate for themselves as much as they really should, because we are bringing so much to the table, but we just tend to take a step back so easily sometimes. Of course, I've met other women who just have very bold voices and are able to be strong advocates for themselves, and I have a massive respect for them. But then I think that's what I personally struggled with and have seen as well. Like in hindsight, now I know what is the value of being in PR and the transition, the skills that I could bring to the table as a result of that really drove success as a BDR, right? I wish I had the confidence to sell that more, so that I could enter the company in a better position. What I observed conversely was that the male candidates tended to be more confident of advocating for themselves. And I don't know if it's a societal or social consequence, but there just is that discrepancy between skill set and ultimately how they choose to advocate for themselves. And I think sometimes it's just we're not used to it, to really speaking up for ourselves or selling ourselves, and it takes a lot of opportunity and practice really find our voice to do that. So I hope that more whoever managers who are listening to this or companies who are listening to this um, will give that opportunity um, to people to be able to do that. Yeah, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And I would say that sometimes maybe it's just about getting more information, because there are more than enough groups or people out there that have been through the SDR route, they're SDR managers, people like me who talk so much
Mm,
about tech sales. It's just as simple as reaching out. And sometimes when you get information, once you know the salary range out there, maybe that
mm,
information will help you to be more bold in terms of
mm,
whoever you are, in terms of asking for a salary that is right for you, that is fair for you. Sometimes maybe it's just
mm.
about that, being a little bit bold in asking, so you don't come across
Yeah,
as too greedy in the
yeah,
because you know the range.
yeah. But I particularly don't know if it really is a trend that is genderized, because I mean, obviously, men experience imposter syndrome as well. We're all humans. Um, yeah, but I think like as you mentioned, there are so many resources out there to really tap on to learn how you can do more for yourself. And I think that's just part of your personal growth as well, right? Taking
Yep.
the initiative to understand like the value that you bring to the table and exactly how to speak about it can just bring you so much further in your career. Yeah.
Yep. And of course, you can be one of the resources as well in the future for people who are interested in finding out more about the roles. And
Mm,
yeah, and of course, with that, Kaely, our time is up, unfortunately. But I do
mm.
have a last few couple questions for you, and try your best to answer them in one
Sure.
sentence or in one phrase. So,
Okay.
based on today's topic, what is one
Mm,
last message you have for, in this case, let's say young people, new
mm.
SDRs who want to join, let's say, an SDR role? What is one last thing you would want to leave with them?
Yeah, I think it's already mentioned in the podcast, which is to really do your research on the company as well as the people that you're speaking with, and bring what you're doing into the BDR job in the way that you're going to see through that interview. So understand your prospects and sell yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And may I add something for you? Is also understand, based on what you have said, understand your privilege, understand the position you are in, and make sure
Mm,
not to forget it even as you rise in management. If I can
mm.
summarize for you.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
nice touch.
Yep. And second last question: what do you love about your job at this moment?
I think what I love about my job is my team. Like I mentioned before, like I am very fortunate to just have very amazing individuals in my team who are all very driven, very open to growth and feedback, and we just have just a great working relationship to share our knowledge across the board, and that collective objective to really raise the ceiling and the delivery of pipeline for the company. So um, yeah, they keep me going.
And of course, the last question: if it's related to the job, feel free to tell me the same answer. But if it's not, feel free to give the answer as well. What gets you out of bed every morning? What motivates you? What energizes you every morning?
Yeah. What's coming to mind is free coffee at the office.
Right.
Yeah. But if I were to
Mm,
say something deeper, I guess it's um and to relate it to work is, yeah, finding finding how I can be valuable to like my team and my company. Um that's the professional side. Yeah. But the personal
right.
side, free coffee, friends, family. Yeah.
Nice. Great way to end it. And
Yeah.
of course, for our listeners who are tuning in, let's say they want to connect with you. What is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always, I think every salesperson spends half their day on LinkedIn.
That's true.
Yeah, so always happy to connect on there.
Okay. And definitely we will make sure that I put your I would say I put your LinkedIn URL in this episode description. But with that, Kelly, we have come to the end of this episode. Just want to say thank you for being a guest on this show. And of course, to all our listeners who are tuning in, Thank you for listening in as well. And again, feel free to connect with me and Kaely. And we are really always excited for the next one. We're looking for it. But for now, everybody, take care, stay safe, and have a great revenue journey. All right, Kaely, say bye to our audience.
All right. Bye, everyone. And thanks for having me, Asha.
No problem. All right, take care, everybody.